Good morning. I'm here with Mr. Ramesh Kymal, Chairman and Managing Director of Gamesa Wind Turbines India. Good morning, sir. Thank you for talking to Panchabuta.
You're welcome.
You've brought in a multinational wind turbine manufacturer, Gamesa, successfully into India and managed to become the third largest turbine supplier by installed capacity. What has contributed to this success that Gamesa has seen in the Indian market?
See, first of all, we are a bunch of professionals. The people around me and who are in this company are people who have been in the business for the last 10 to 12 years. I myself have been in the wind industry for the last 19 years, having seen the growth of the wind industry from the beginning, from the mid-90s till now. So I have seen it evolve, and what we have done is we started out very, very differently. We wanted to be seen as people who are very professional, who give the best quality product, which is ideally suited for the Indian market. And this is not something which we have done yesterday or day before. I have been doing that for 19 years, and then we have built up a reputation in the market, which people relied upon, because in India, unlike in many other parts of the world, people do business with their heart and not with their head. And that has contributed to our success, because we had a good product, we had a good company to back up from Spain. Our principals were very, very supportive of us. And of course, we had a group of hardcore professionals who have built this company up.
Given that the Indian arm of Gamesa now contributes to 19% of total wind turbine sales and 12% of revenues in 2011, what plans does Gamesa have for India?
The support that we are getting is tremendous from our head office. It's also partly because, in India, the fundamentals for our business is very, very strong. Because what is driving our business in India is really the shortage of electricity. And of late, the government is also realizing the importance of using indigenous materials to produce electricity, because electricity is something we cannot shy away from. If we have to have the kind of growth we are having, we must have electricity at affordable prices. And that is possible only if we use more and more of renewables, and out of the renewables, wind is the most commercially competitive available now. So having said that, it's also a question of energy security. So the government is also pitching in and helping this industry grow now. So your question was, how is Gamesa helping Gamesa India? And this is one of the reasons, because the fundamentals are very strong. Plus, the markets in other parts of the world are actually going down. Invariably, it is thermal or it is hydro. Hydro is okay, but thermal, the constraint we all know, because coal linkages are a big problem, and importing coal now of high calorific value means there is an energy security issue also. Plus, we do not know what is the cost of power after, let's say, 5 years, because we do not know the cost of the raw material input. So that's as far as one section of power is concerned. Another section of the thermal, the non-conventional power, that is wind or solar, is that since most of it is grid connected, they treat renewable energy as the same as conventional power, and that cannot be. You have to have long-term policies for renewable energy, same way as you have for conventional power. Thirdly, there is a lot of subsidy for conventional power, whether it is oil or whether it is coal. There is a lot of subsidies there, which we in the non-conventional side do not have. So what we are saying, either you remove that and have a level playing field, or give us the same kind of subsidies that you are giving them, and we will show the world that we can actually be number one in at least in wind power all over the world. We could be a net exporter, because production costs are really down here. So what India lacks is actually, we should have one department for energy to today we have oil and petroleum, we have power, we have non-conventional energy, etc., etc. So each department or each ministry thinks that they are doing something for their own small sphere, but nobody is able to take a kind of a helicopter view of the whole thing. So maybe we should go back to our basics and say that we should have one Ministry of Energy with maybe several ministers, but they take care of, decisions are taken in one place, not scattered around, and now everything is pushed up. So nobody is taking a decision. Found out from satellite imagery and satellite calculations, mesoscale maps. And Sri Lanka doesn't need all that power. So I have been talking to the government in Sri Lanka, and I have been trying to press our government here to see if we can have a kind of a win-win situation where we put up these wind farms in the north of Sri Lanka and bring the power through an underground cable to India, very much like we buy hydropower from Bhutan. So that's the kind of potential we have, and it could solve our power problem, and it could solve the employment issues that are there in the north of Sri Lanka. So this is something which I am still pursuing.
You have often talked about the need for a holistic approach to our power problem, and that renewables have a major role to play in the same. You also called for a level playing field in this regard. Could you elaborate, please?
Yes. Take the case of oil. The subsidy on oil is something like 2 lakh crore rupees every year. A good portion of that is the subsidy that is available for diesel. And roughly 20 to 25% of all that diesel is going to produce through diesel gensets electricity. So it's a subsidy for the electricity, but in spite of that, they are not able to supply power for less than 10 to 12 rupees per kilowatt hour. If you look at wind, even without the subsidies, that we have no subsidies actually, we are able to supply wind at between 4 rupee 50 paise to 5 rupees in spite of the high borrowing costs, depending on which part of India you are in. Plus, we are future-proofing the prices. If the cost of power is so much today, it's not going to be very different 20 years from now, because the raw material is not there. Plus, talking of the raw material, wind can be put up only where there is, wind farms can be put up only where there is wind, which means you don't have to transport your raw material. And you don't have to import your raw material. So you save a lot of foreign exchange for the country. You use indigenous materials to produce power. You do not pollute, and you don't even use water to produce electricity. Electricity from wind is the only form of production of electricity where you do not use water. Otherwise, you need water for something or the other. A concurrent subject in India, we face a big problem because every state interprets the Electricity Act in its own way. So therefore, we need an overarching renewable energy law which will address all these things. It will address the issues of subsidy, it will address the issues of how much of RPO should be there, and what are the kind of penalties that will be levied if RPO is not there, the feed-in tariffs that should be paid in various states. But now it's interpreted whichever way it suits them. So this is also affecting our planning.
This brings us to a very interesting observation. Wind is probably the only sector in India which does not have an NTPC or an NHPC, and all the investment in wind so far has come from the private sector.
Yes.
So what do you think contributes to this, and what are the three biggest challenges and opportunities to continue these kinds of private investments in the wind sector?
You're right. Maybe one of the reasons wind is neglected is because the government has not invested in wind, and it works both ways. 99% of all investment has come from the private sector, and even now what is driving the growth in India is the IPP sector, which is again private sector. It's not public utilities. And what we need to do to promote it is to bring better financing, because today there is no project financing, it is all balance sheet funded. So they should enhance the generation based incentive, reduce the interest rates, and make it a kind of a priority sector, and make sure that the price of power that is sold is remunerative. Today what is happening is that each department is trying to outdo the other to make sure that wind is not promoted. If we are not saying that you give us a better tariff and we should sell to the utility. No, you just free us up, allow us to sell electricity to whoever is willing to pay for it, instead of putting all kinds of cross subsidy charges and discourage the sale of power to somebody who needs it. Today there is so much a shortage that any power from any source is welcome. We are not saying that wind can replace thermal or nuclear or whatever. What we are saying is we can supplement to a great extent and thereby reduce the foreign exchange that is going out of the country, and make sure that this gap of electricity generation is met through wind.
With the landscape of the Indian wind industry changing, larger players and IPPs have emerged in the sector. As the chairman of IWTMA, can you please tell us your vision for the organization and the wind sector over the next 3 to 5 years in India?
The Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturers Association started more than 15 years ago, and that time, because it was a regime where we were supplying to smaller installations by corporates whose main line of activity was not wind, we ended up doing the development and the erection and the maintenance, etc. But today with IPPs coming in, they are large, they are very professional, and that is their main line of business. So now we have to treat this sector very, very differently. What is it that they want? They are looking at a good product, a reliable product which has got a good service backup, and that is how the market is now changing to that. But when we talk about the Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturers Association, we have so many associations that the views sometimes get confused when it goes to the government. So therefore, I am one who has been pushing for a unified association called the Indian Wind Alliance, where we'll have different associations merged together, like INVIA, IWTMA, WIPA and IWPA, all of them join together and come under one umbrella called the Indian Wind Alliance. So we are working towards that, and hopefully in the next few months we'll have that alliance where even component manufacturers of wind turbines are members. Then we'll have a unified voice, and then we can make sure that the government hears one voice from the industry rather than several voices.
You briefly touched upon financing as one of the largest challenges going forward as large-scale IPPs come in, and project finance needs to happen both from a cost and from a tenor perspective. What are the other significant challenges that wind probably needs to enable and fulfill its vision?
One is the issues on the ground, issues of logistics. In India, because of the infrastructure constraints, bigger need not be better. We need to have, we need to realize that even though there are bigger and bigger machines in the West and in Europe, it really doesn't make sense to bring those machines here. Here you need to specifically design a machine with very large rotor diameters so that you can harvest the same amount of energy from wind that you would from a machine with a smaller wind diameter in Europe. Because here the wind patterns are very different. Here what we need is, like I said, larger rotor diameter, because the density of wind is lower and the intensity of wind is also lower than in Europe. Then the other thing is, there are people talking about offshore, in India. In my opinion, we are just putting the cart before the horse. I don't think offshore is a solution for India, not at least for the next 10-15 years, and not till we have changed the technology itself. Because if you are thinking of having a foundation in the sea, it doesn't work in India, because in the west of India we have deep seas. In the east of India, we have cyclonic seas. And the total potential people have found out is only 1,500 megawatt. But on land, we have more than 3 lakh to 4 lakh megawatt, and we have tapped only, less than 20,000 megawatts. So the scope is huge. We also went to the government and we said that, through our associations and through Shakti Foundation, where I am involved, we went and told them that, we can actually supply 15% of all electricity from wind. So what we need is actually a wind mission, like a solar mission, and that's what we are working towards, where we will have the renewable energy law, where you will have very similar to the solar mission with targets and what the government should do to free us up. We don't need any subsidies, like I said. You just allow us to operate freely instead of, tying up our hands and asking us to fight an unequal battle with the others.
Leads the growth globally. What kind of platform does Wind Power India 2012 provide to stakeholders?
It's going to be a one-stop shop for technology providers, manufacturers, finance professionals, and IPPs, and even other investors, plus employees of companies to come together, share the latest, and talk about the prospects and what can be done to improve the situation in a country like India, and which will have a definite positive fallout for the rest of the world, because India is the happening place when it comes to wind. And like I said, that's because of the fundamental, that is, we have no power, or very little power.
Thank you, Mr. Kymal. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.